right. Well, thank you for joining me on this. And so, I mean, basically, all I've really done, first off, I slapped the mic stand, which is always good. But I've just asked people to just tell me who you are, where you're from, whatever you're going to tell me about yourself.
Okay, well, I'm Ralph Stout, former Master Sergeant Stout from the Army Reserves. Been pretty much all over the world. Started out in Kentucky as a kid and finally made it to Florida, where I was actually born, and went through high school, middle school here, and then the rest of my time after that was all military.
Okay.
So
one thing that I've been asking people is, where were you in life when you decided like the Army was what you were going to do?
I was in a pretty low spot in my life. Had gotten in trouble by the law a little bit of delinquent, like to put artwork on a lot of things. Painted am I allowed to say names of places? I'll generically say I painted a building, and
I would say be careful, tread lightly just in case.
Yeah, I decided to put some of my artwork on a building in one of the local cities close to here, and got arrested, had to go through the court system and stuff like that. And eventually I worked it out and did restitution and, community service and things like that and got it over. But it hurt me when I tried to go in the military the first time straight out of high school. Got all my paperwork together, got ready to go to MEPS, and bam, all my misdemeanors turned into felonies to try to get into the, when they cross-referenced it in federal, it was a felony and not a misdemeanor as it was in the state. So I had to go through a whole bunch of stuff. It took me another 2 years to try to get in the military after
Wow.
that. Yeah.
So the Army was really something that you wanted to do with that?
All my life. I actually started wanting to go into the Air Force, and then found out that I was colorblind, so that kind of put the squash on it. So when I finally got to go to MEPS, finally got to get a contract with the military and everything, got a really good ASVAB score, I'm like, I can get any job I want. I mean, I was shooting straight for something techy, missiles or electronics or something like that. Get through MEPS, and they did the little colorblind dot test, the what numbers in these dots here. Mm-hmm. I thought they were messing with me for real. I had no idea all my life up to that point that I was colorblind. So I'm like, I have no idea what's going on here. What are you talking about? I flipped the page, and I was like, I'm just looking at them with a dumbfounded look on their face.
Yeah.
So I finally I passed the bare minimum to actually get into the military. And the only job because of that was open to me was light infantry at the time.
Yeah.
So I became an infantryman. And not quite what I wanted to go in the military for. But I will say, the reason I needed in the military was just fine with me at the time. I was down and out. I was broke, no job, had a baby on the way, my first wife, and just the military was, I was hoping for it right out of high school, and that was my plans. And like I said, it took me another almost 3 years to get all the waivers I needed, get all the paperwork done, visiting the police department where I was at, trying to make friends with people that were mad at me at the time. It was a whole situation there, but finally got it worked out. And once I got in, man, I never looked back.
Well, that's really cool.
Hard charging the best I could, did everything to the best of my ability at that point. And,
well, I wonder if some of those people you mentioned at that time maybe saw you were trying to do that and were more willing to try to sign off of this guy's trying to correct his past. Well, I shouldn't say correct your past, but trying to get back on a better path.
And you're right, because I went to that police department. I'm just trying not to name names in case, whatever. But
something outstanding, they come find you.
No, not that. Just, I don't want it to mess with, that you have to go find some kind of waiver for this.
Yeah, for saying someone's name or something. But I appreciate that.
But the arresting officer who had become the higher rank, I think he was a investigator or something like that. He recognized me. I kept coming in, trying to ask for help and trying to get this paperwork signed and everything. And, at first I get the run around. I don't know, that guy don't even work here no more or something like that. You know,
Yeah.
it's just they were like, get out of here, kid. You're always in trouble or something like that. You know, and he gave me a chance. He met me at the front door and he said, I see you coming in here all the time. What is it that you're trying to do? Because I guess no one's really relayed what I was asking. And maybe I didn't know how to ask the right way. Probably that was more of it. But I told him, and he says, well, let me go back in my office. I'll put your name in there and see what I can come up with. He come out of the room and he had his piece of paper in there and he had a nice write-up for me. He was like, you know, I arrested him on such and such date, and you know, he told me, he did a narrative of how good I had been doing since then compared to all the people that got in trouble with me.
Yeah.
I was the only one that, you know, went and graduated high school. I went and did this, and you know, I put in the work to try to better myself. You know, he gave me this scathing, you know, I wouldn't say scathing, but
glowing,
nice, you know, recommendation.
Yeah.
And once I brought that to the recruiters, and then they showed it to their colonel, and the colonel gave me a call on an interview on there, and from that point forward, everything started just falling into place.
Well, that's really cool.
So, I mean, I tell my kids, like, you know, here in JROTC, you know, just because you're down and out for right now doesn't mean that you give up on everything, you know. So I give them most of this is my lessons I learned in my life. I try to impart on them. I always tell them, I said, I did all the hard work. All you got to do is listen to me, and you can skip right past that and get right into life. You know, start being, you know, good with everything you do. You don't have to go through those trials and tribulations like I did.
Maybe, hopefully, reduce the amount of mistakes they make.
Exactly, and that's my hope. You know, I never saw myself sitting right here in this classroom.
Yeah.
JROTC, man. It's kind of full circle because I graduated high school doing JROTC, you know, and that's why I was like, I'm going to the military straight out of high school.
Yeah.
I had no idea that my past, how important that was, you know, when you were going forward, you know.
Yeah.
It just caught, when you say something, your past caught up with you, that first time trying to go through, man, it just hit me like a brick wall. Just bam, you know, I can't do it. You know, when you're told
you thought you were done with it.
Yeah, I thought I did my stuff, I did my time, did everything I was told to do and asked to do, and I did it happily so I could get out of trouble. And then they were like, no, you're a bad person. That's kind of what it, you know, made you feel like at the time. But perseverance, man. If you want something bad enough, you work for it, you know, and you put in the time, it's going to happen for you.
Well, and seeking those people out, because you kept on and you finally got to that person that would help you in that situation. And I think a lot of people have a problem with that, trying to get the help that they need for stuff.
You can, it's easy to give up.
Yeah.
You know, like, I could have easily just walked away, and I say this to my kids, I could have walked away the first and second time they turned me away from that police department. I could have been the person they were babysitting in jail or prison somewhere. I was definitely not far from that, you know, at that time in my life.
What year was that?
93.
93.
Between 91 and 93. I finally got in 93.
So, well, I'm trying to think, because it's funny, because a bunch of people that I've talked to have had difficulties getting in the military, whether it be getting in touch with their recruiter or something like whereas me, I mean, at the time, they were taking anybody and everybody.
Yeah, everybody.
So, like, as soon as I entered the door, you know, they would not leave me alone.
Yeah, and that's another thing, that military-wise, when I first got in, I got injured, and they wouldn't allow me to reclassify. And then later on in the years, it was so easy to reclassify. I had to get out of active duty, go into the reserves just to get reclassified, just to stay in the military. You know, it was just, you know, different time periods, you know,
for sure.
Early to mid 90s, you know, they were just like one and done, man. You know, it's like I'm sitting in Washington State, got busted up, you know, it's like I can't run no more, can't do this. So I even told him, I said, I'm not trying to get out. Can you give me another job? I'm willing to stay in. You know, oh man, we got to put you out, man, under a medical and blah, blah, blah. You know, I was like, why?
Yeah.
You know?
And I'm terrible with dates, but Desert Storm, what year was Desert Storm?
91.
91, okay. So,
because that's why I was like hard charging. I want to get to that.
Well, that's making me wonder, because like Desert Storm was something that happened very quickly and then was over again.
Right.
So that, I wonder if that contributed at all to the more difficulties getting in, because maybe if it was like on the ramp up too,
Right.
they might have been, worked with you a little bit more on getting in there. But I don't know.
Never got into that part. I'm not really even sure why, but I just know that early on, it was so hard just to make sure all your I's, were dotted and your T's were crossed, or you was just, you were looked over, you had to restart or whatever the case was,
I was going to ask you if they made you any promises, because I know a lot of people that in a similar situation with eyesight and things, they would say, "Oh, you go infantry and you do it for a year or two, and then we can reclass you somewhere else."
Exactly.
And never happens.
First thing they told me, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up. I get in light infantry. I'm just like, okay, I'm in now. I'm in basic training. I even went up to my drill sergeant and said, "Hey, they told me this." They said, once I get done with basic training, I can reclassify into anything. And that guy, all I got was a laugh in the face and a bunch of push-ups just for bringing it up. So, it wasn't that easy. But, when the recruiter's trying to get you in and things sound good, you're going to stick to it.
Where did you go to basic?
Fort Benning.
Fort Benning.
I don't even know what it's called anymore. Fort whatever.
Is it a different name?
I think so, with that whole realignment name thing they've done in the last couple of years.
I'm unfortunately more ignorant on that stuff than I would like to be, because I haven't paid much attention to it in recent years.
I was so mad about it that I just continue to call it what I know it as. I didn't even try to learn the new names. I ain't gonna lie.
Well, I know they did a lot of shifts. So, and speaking to someone else that went to Fort Knox like I did, and at the time we were supposed to be one of the last classes, but I guess now they're doing
more basic
there again. So I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, that was the first thing when they put armor down to Fort Benning. They changed it. I was like, what is going on?
Yeah,
here?
stuff all around.
But it's growth, and so there was a need for it, I'm assuming. But old words like me, I'm just like, that ain't right.
Well, someone, you say old horse like you, there's always this generational gap, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Like every generation says like, oh, mine was harder, or this, that, what I mean? So I wonder what basic was like for you, Fort Benning, Georgia, in the early 90s,
So my dad used to come in, he used to throw me around, punch me, this, that, and the other, and you could take your shirt off and fight, and it was just a, man-on-man thing on that, and then time it got to me, they were still hitting you in the forehead with their, the brown round, boop, boop, and pushing you around a little bit, but no real big physical things. But nevertheless, I was scared to death of them people. So I'm not gonna lie. Everything I could do to keep away from that drill sergeant's eyesight is what I did in basic training. I spent most of my time just, don't look at me.
Well, that's the way it's designed to be. You don't want to be the lightning rod.
Believe me, it happened one time. It's one of the things where it's only going to happen one time. I got smoked so bad, I don't even remember what it was for. To me, it was so incidental, and I just got smoked for it. And I was just like, whatever it is I done wrong, I'm not going to do it again. I don't know what it was, but I guarantee it's not going to happen again. So. But that carried over to my first permanent party. I was scared to death of a corporal. Mm-hmm. And that, you don't see that, like when I got to y'all's unit, and y'all are sitting there and you're like looking at me at E6, I think it was an E7 when I showed up.
E7.
Yeah, I just got my E7. Y'all look at me, y'all like, who's this guy? And there was not that same, I wouldn't say fear, but that, I don't know. I don't know what would be a good word for that.
There's definitely a difference in the general culture.
Yeah.
I would say between combat arms and support and service support and such.
Right.
Because in a lot of, even when I was in at that time, you have conversations with infantry, and it's like, hey man, can you ask your sergeant about this? Or like, what are you talking about? Like, we don't talk to our sergeant. He comes and talks to us.
Exactly.
It was a totally different vibe.
And that's what I'm getting at. I was so used to being in combat arms, Even when I got to the 195th, it was downstairs from us. The very first day I went to that unit, and one of the younger female troops goes up and gives the first sergeant a hug and said, "What are we doing tonight?" Because I guess they had a little, they go out and have a little drink or something, and dinner or something afterward. Me, I'm straight out of the infantry going, what just happened?
Yeah.
You know, I literally almost got out of the military because of that situation.
Really?
Yes.
Well, and that's a difficult one to navigate because you hope that, especially in the reserves, is a little more relaxed than being on active for sure.
I was coming straight out of there, going into there, and I was just like,
well, and you hope that they're just friends and it's not going to mess with unit cohesion and all that kind of stuff.
and that's what I was more scared of. I went from a unit that, like you said, if we're the same rank, we're cool.
Yeah.
You're one rank higher than me. I'm just like, hey, what's up? And moving on, you know, because I know you're gonna find something for me to do, bother me or something, you know. Especially, I mean, out of my whole Army career, the one name all the way from the beginning I will never forget, and I'm gonna put it out there. I don't even know if he's still around or not, but it was Corporal Fahey. I was scared to death of that man.
Yeah.
Only person in my whole unit, you know, of privates when I first got there had stripes. Mm-hmm. And he had an attitude because his whole thing was, I got all this responsibility to deal with you knotheads and I don't get paid for it. And he made sure that he got his time with you, you know, and I was just, I see him in the parking lot, I would go a long way around the parking lot, get to the chow hall or whatever. I don't care, I'm going to get last in line, I'm just not passing him, you know. I mean, that's the kind of respect you have for rank at that, you know, and maybe that's it. It was more of a respect for the rank because you knew that he didn't just get those 2 stripes, you know.
Yeah.
And usually, you know, it's like you made the list for 5, but we don't have a spot or whatever. And they were, you know, and that was at the time the points were so high to get that next promotion, you know, it was hard. So you got those corporals that were mad, you know. So
the closest thing I ever had was when I went to the intelligence unit and I was starting over there. Mm-hmm. I was in processing, and what do they call it? Not on my way in, but not on my way out. And a captain walked into the room, and I'm, you know, and he's like, "Nah, dude, chill." I'm like, "Wait, what?" He's like, "Yeah, just sit, relax." And like I had been playing on my phone because I was literally sitting around just like waiting for the paperwork to process. It wasn't even allowed to go in the building yet.
Right.
You know, so I'm sitting in the lobby like on my phone. He's like, "Nah, chill, man. You can pull your phone back out. We don't got nothing for you to do." And I was like, "Wait, what? Like, how am I not getting in trouble and being made to sweep or something right now?"
Right
you know?
yeah.
So I mean,
that's how it was for me on the reverse side when I come in. I walk into that unit, I'm like, everybody just sitting around looking at me. Why? You know, it's like
calling each other by their first name.
Yeah. What'd you do yesterday? And it just the military bearing is what was the culture shock for me coming out of combat arms going into service support. That was the biggest thing. It took me a little bit. So.
And that's one of the things that I find particularly fascinating about your case is that you did both.
Yeah.
And so like I'm trying to have more of a lean towards, you know, people who were not non-combat, but I'm really interested to see, you know, just exactly this, your experience on having been in the combat and then coming to non-combat.
Right.
So when you were in the infantry, we're talking early 90s, you did that for how long?
A total of 13 years altogether.
Okay. And you know, can you tell us a little bit about your time in the infantry?
Yeah, it came with a divorce, a kid. We were in the field quite often. No real home life. So kind of the infantry kind of put me in the spot I needed to be in. I was married, and I wasn't. Then I was at the barracks, and then they had full control of me. You know, that's kind of how that went. And then 3 weeks out of every month that I was there, we were in the field in Washington State, Fort Lewis. And good 5 years, I didn't really get to see or know my son that well because of that. And, you know, that was hard. You know, brand new father, brand new divorcee, all at the same time. I mean, I went to basic training. Then as soon as I got the permanent party, we went down to Panama, Fort Sherman. Did 30 days down there. And in between that and coming back home, my wife decided she found somebody to make her unlonely, you know. and you know, that's a story that a lot of people have, so I'm not unique on that. But, you know, as a brand new, you know, private that don't know anything about the world, man, it was devastating at the time, you know. So that was that was the first time I thought, well, maybe this isn't for me, you know. But once I got into the barracks and started actually making friends, you know, because there's a difference when you know your guys and then you go home when you're married, you know, you're in an apartment off post, you know, and you're doing family things. All the shenanigans and the camaraderie is going on after hours with other people. So it was actually hard for me to fit back in at first.
Well, I can imagine, especially being in infantry, it tends to be a lot of 18, 19, 20-year-olds and stuff. And so you being close to that same age, but not being able to be.
Yeah, I was actually a little older too.
Oh, were you? Okay.
Yeah, I did. Since, you know, I had those problems, I was 23 when I went to basic training. So
Which is like a lifetime difference.
Yeah, I was the old man in basic training. You know, that was my nickname. And then I get the permanent party, and the closest age to me was 18 years old, you know, and everybody else was 17, 18, you know, and here I am, 23 years old, and they're like, why are you still a private first class? I'm like, dude, man, I just got in the same time you did, you know? So, you know, and I was still in good shape and everything, but there was definitely a difference between beating your body up, 3 weeks at a time, being 18 years old, and 23, 24, 25 as time went on. Mm-hmm. I felt it a lot more than most other people did,
Yeah.
And not complaining. I kept myself in good shape, and I was able to keep up and do the things I needed to do. But I could just tell how easy people could do things compared to how easy it wasn't for me sometimes. Just like I'm here, but ooh goodness, So, but then I got injured, and then started my whole. Had to get put out of active duty and go get VA help, and then had a 4-year gap. Not a gap. I was still on my first enlistment, so I still had that 3 years computer time that I was good enough. Was it reserve, ready reserve? That's
IRR inactive.
IRR inactive.
Ready reserve.
So I get healed up, get fixed and everything, and then I'm thinking, because nobody explained this to me when they let me go, that I still had an obligation. I had no idea what none of that meant. Mm-hmm. I got hurt. I was sitting in the hospital, and they give me my release paper saying you're going back home, have a good life. And then to tell me that, if I got healed up, I'm supposed to report back to somebody or anything like that. And I'm sitting home. I just moved from where I first was, and I moved here to Lake Wells, as a matter of fact. And I get a knock on the door one day. I'm like, hey, there's a bunch of recruiters. And I'm like, why are you here? Well, you only got 6 months left on your obligation, and we got to get you back into a unit somewhere, Hence, I ended up at 195th, ended up in transportation. They finally reclassed me, into 88 Mike. Got to drive trucks, and you know what? That was eye opener too.
Yeah.
Because I went from, I didn't even know at the time, and it's a funny story. I didn't know how to open a cot. Didn't even know what a cot was, because we stayed in hooches everywhere we went. I just take my poncho liner, throw it over a rock or two, and sleep under. That was it. We were up in the morning, stuffing our bag, and we were marching out, right? First time I go out to the field with this new unit, they put up all these GP medium tents, throw out all these, these metal things with cloth over it, and say, here's yours. And I'm like, I'm carrying around, what is this thing? Literally, I had to have some private show me how to put the thing together. You know how it is when you try to get that last one. He's like, no man, you just put it on the van and step on it. I was like, I have no clue.
Where's the big guy? We need weight on this.
Yeah, and then I was like, I had an epiphany. I was like, I stayed worrying about being in the infantry all this time, and I got a bed to sleep on in the field. I was just like, I was so blown away. The first night I sat there awake going, what have I been doing, in the Army? This is real, I got an actual tent, everybody's complaining about it, around me, and I'm just like, dude, you know how good you got this? Like you said, it's the difference from one to the other, I was blown away. And I was blown away again that everybody was complaining about it.
Yeah.
I was like,
well, meanwhile, you're over here like, thank goodness I don't have a rock for a pistol.
yeah. And I was sitting in the cow patio rolling over it at night, you know. Oh, goodness, you know what happened? That's happened before. So it's an experience, dude. But, yeah, I was like, and I'm driving a vehicle, so all this heavy weight that I used to put on my back, I'm throwing it in a truck. And you know, it's like, got it made now.
Yeah.
You know? Had no idea that was going to move me into logistics and everything else, you know. So
was that a choice, or did they place you there?
They gave me two choices:
Okay.
a generator mechanic or a truck driver.
Gotcha.
And I was like, well, fixing a generator sounds slow and boring. I think I'll drive a truck, you know. So they put me in a unit in the very first week. I was going to get my reclass done, and I was like, I've been missing out. You know, the whole time. I've been missing out, don't understand. I don't know why.
What was AIT like coming off infantry and going to driving school?
Well, I still had a little bit of attitude. I thought everybody was dumb still. You know, I'm not trying to be mean, but like you said, you know, the culture is different.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all like, man, you've got to stand at parade rest when you're talking to an NCO, and they're all like, what are you talking about? You know, and it's still not computing that.
Yeah.
You know, there's a difference, you know. Shouldn't be, but there is, you know. I don't know, man. To this day, I'm just like, I still make these cadets do, you know, the right thing, you know, and that's the way I'll always look at it. There's the right thing and what you let people get away with. And I don't know, you knew me. I was kind of a butthole when I first got to that unit, you know, because I expected certain things.
Yeah.
And from what I had seen prior, because, you know, I was in the transportation unit before I moved up there to the ETO at the time, wasn't it? Yeah. And when I left that, when my unit was squared away, you know, because I finally made E7, I got to a place where I could actually instill some discipline and good order, you know, and everything was going good. And then I got asked to come up there, and I was like, oh man, I got to start this all over again. I remember going in there, and y'all were sitting in the classroom, the whole bunch of them. And I was just like, oh my goodness, well, how am I going to work this? You know, and a couple people we mentioned, you know, was like joking with me, and I'm like, I'm not in a joking mood. You know? I mean, you know, y'all turned out real good. Y'all were asking me questions about, I remember specifically you and not Thorpe, but who was it, your best friend? Publix manager.
Oh my goodness, I could have told you until you said Brookshire.
Brookshire, yes. He finally went AGR, but y'all wanted to be Rangers so bad. Airborne Rangers so bad. And that's all, y'all asked me that 100 times. How did I get this, that, and the other? And that gave me hope. You know, like, hey, somebody's actually wanting to do the right things, you know, and stuff like that. And then we had a couple guys who, I didn't think they were mature enough to be where they were at, you know, but to me, that gave me something to strive for, though, try and put a little bit, you know, like a little knowledge in, you know. I mean, y'all were just out of basic training. A bunch of you, I think, if I remember correctly, had just come out of basic training.
Brookshire and I, we had just landed like within the same week or two or something when we came back.
Yeah, so I know there's a bunch of that. And then there was some old hats in there, and some of their ways just didn't sit right with me.
Well, I think that's one of the things that actually made me gravitate more towards you was because, not trying to speak poorly of anyone, but they were a bunch of sergeants that had been there that probably shouldn't have been sergeants or should have retired a long time ago. And, you know, you ask them, it's like, I want to do stuff. Like, I want to be a part of something. And they're like, oh, well, you know, like that will never happen. And
no hope, right?
Yeah. Whereas like I go to you and I'm like, man, I want to do cool stuff. And you're like, all right, let's do cool stuff.
I tried, but, you know.
Well, I mean, there's only so much, you know.
Yeah.
Like looking back, I was a logistics reservist. So, I mean, like there's potential. I mean, I know people who went reserves be sappers and like Thorpe is doing like jumping out of airplanes, do commo stuff as a reserve. So it's like, it's not that the options aren't there.
Right. It's like I said at the beginning of this, is about what you want and how far you're about, you know, that you want to push it and strive for it. I that's what I learned. I came from pretty much nothing, and it's not anybody's fault. A lot of it was my own because I didn't know the right way to go about things. I never had, a dad in my life at first, so I was left to my own thinking as a young adolescent kid. That ain't always good because I didn't have any guidance, like somebody's belt, like, don't do that again, If I got away with it, I thought I was doing okay, whatever that case was, and I felt once I got some of these units, including yours and ours, it became ours, that I had a goal, like I want these guys to be the best they can be. And that's what I strive for. I tried. I don't know, not everybody's going to like, you can't make everybody happy. I know that. And, you got, the whole, well, I respect the rank, but not that guy. You hear the whisperings everywhere. And that's fine. As long as you do what you need to do, we can still work, But for the most part, it was a really good unit. So
I feel like I got pretty lucky in a lot of those circumstances. Yeah. I don't. If you weren't there, I feel like things would have been very different for me for sure. And I hadn't really considered it until now when you talked about how you got E7 and then came to that unit, and now you're putting leadership of a totally different culture. So not only is there the culture shock of like things work differently over here,
right,
but you had previously been in charge of maintaining a certain way of doing things, and then you come over to this side. And it's not that we shouldn't have some of those things, but it's like things are just a little different over here. And now you're trying to be the dude in charge of the things that you don't know or understand.
And that's it too. It's like my rank only takes me so far, right? I'm an E7 on a line unit is a lot different than an E7 and an ECO, and and the amount of. And I'm not downing. I mean, I did most of my time in the reserves. I'm not downing them, but I always believed that everybody should at least done 3 years in active duty before they went to reserves, so they could understand the difference in the culture and even just the drill and ceremony and the traditions of actual active duty, because ultimately that reserve unit is going to be plugged in with those guys.
Yeah.
Like we found ourselves, right?
Yeah.
And you want to know what to expect. You don't want to go into these things like just all, you're just brand new cherry all over again and trying to catch up. And you got a mission that you're on, right? You don't want to be the person that's trying to figure it out along the way. That's a very uncomfortable and it's not always a good situation. So my personal, I always believe that the military has kind of done that a little bit wrong. I understand the role of the reservists was different before, Operation Iraqi Freedom and all that stuff come about, 20-year war, and, the culture had to change. Mm-hmm. But
there weren't enough active duty to maintain.
And people don't realize that we deployed a lot more than what we were actually made for, so. I mean,
that whole every 5 years thing kind of went out the window for a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, I deployed 4 times. I was in country 6 years out of 10 as a reservist, and I'm like, I didn't deploy this much as an active duty person once.
Yeah.
And I'm like, holy crap, I mean, I ain't volunteered for the last 3, so I mean, it wasn't that bad. But I mean, it wasn't bad enough. Didn't like being away from the family and everything, but I actually, I had you guys were family to me at that time. I'm like, I'm not letting them go without me. I had that mentality, and my whole thinking was all the time is like, if I can just get one person thinking along these lines, and then I will have done something. I know I can't train, I can't reach everybody, but I hope that my examples reach enough that it gets passed down, and that's what I always hope for, So I don't know if it actually really worked, but I got a couple buddies that talk to me, and they're just like, thanks, man, for what you done, and that's all I need. I don't even really need that. It's just always good to hear, though.
Yeah.
So thanks, thanks for what you did. Thanks for helping me out here. At least I know I made an impact, I had tried to stay in a whole 30 years, made it 26, and things just got. Sorry if this ever finds a general sitting somewhere, it might have been there, but the whole woke culture that y'all allowed to get in there just wasn't working for me.
Well, a lot of the stuff the Army is, from what I have seen lately, they're reeling from a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just in general, like to use COVID as an example, and the masks and the lawsuits that the military has lost because of that and stuff. And it's one of those where it's, you know, they say hindsight's 20/20. Looking back, it's not that I had a problem with wearing a mask or trying to protect others, but I had the more issue of
the mandate.
Yeah, people yelling at you about doing the right thing when you have no idea what the right thing is.
Yeah, you don't even know what the right thing is. You just come up with something because it looks right.
Yeah,
you know.
And now that they've shown that a lot of the things were largely ineffective.
Mm-hmm. It's hindsight 20/20. I got you.
And so it's one of those where it's like, listen, like I will try to help others, but quit telling me I'm a bad person just because I want to make sure, just because I have a little bit of skepticism.
Right.
Because skepticism is good. Because I'm questioning, not because
you.
I don't believe in you, but because I want to make sure what we're doing is effective and working. And
it makes me happy that you say that, because what was one of the main things I used to say? I'm giving you this information, but don't believe me.
Yeah.
You research it yourself. You know, I mean, I'm always been a believer of that. I'm going to give you the best information and guidance that I have. It doesn't always mean I'm 100% correct. Mm-hmm. And I always say, you know, if there's something you need to correct me on, correct me, because I don't want to give out the wrong information. And see, I think people get so caught up in their own selves that they can't be wrong. You know,
Yeah.
I don't see life that way. I sit here in this classroom teaching these kids, and I'm looking right out of the book, and I find things that like, that might not be right. You know, let me do a little bit more research, because I just taught you guys this, but I think there's a nuance that we need to dig deeper into right here. You know, I do that now. And, you know, if you look on that bookshelf over there, my whole class is written out for me. I don't have to, you know, figure all that. It's right there. It's a little chapter, whatever, and this is what we're learning today. You know, and I find things. I'm like, question. You know, I'm going back through Army manuals. Like, is this real? I don't remember this. You know, sometimes I'm like, I just must have forgotten. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, no, this is what it's supposed to be. You know, and I try and give them that information. You know, of course, talking to, you know, 14 to 17-year-olds doesn't always, you know, come across. Okay, leave me alone.
In one ear, now the other, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, just like your kids. When your oldest is 5, mine, you know, mine at 16 still didn't hear me. You know, 17, 18. You know, so it's all good. You try the best you can. You reach the people you can, and then you got a good life, because. Just like, I've been here 5 years now, I believe. Yeah, this is my 5th year. And I have students come back and just say, thank you, Sergeant Stout. And then walk away. I'm like, I have no idea what he just said, but thank you. You're welcome. So something stuck, and that's what I'm looking for, so.
Well, I can tell you, to give one example, that it definitely stuck with me, because I had plenty of moments that, going on the idea of, like, as long as you're correct, like, you can't get in trouble.
Right.
Because, like, one example was I was trying to go on leave when we got hurt coming from overseas. And so I asked my sergeant, my squad leader, like, hey, man, like, so I have leave for this weekend. That means I can go home Friday night, right? And I just got to be back Monday morning. And he takes me outside and starts reaming me out about me asking questions like that inside the office with his boss in there and this stuff. I'm like, dude, like, as far as I understand, unless there is a command policy that is, contrary to that, leave is assumed that end of business day, 5 o'clock, you can do whatever, you're on leave. Mm-hmm. And he got real mad about that and tried to get me in trouble for it.
Right?
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to be mean about it. I was just asking a question just to be sure so I didn't get in trouble.
Right.
And then I talked to the platoon leader after that, after they had a chat. He's like, nah, man, you're cool. Like, that's how it works. 5 o'clock, first sergeant cuts you loose, you can head home and be back here by first formation Monday morning. I'm like, all right, cool. Like, and then, like, I'm not trying to get him in trouble. He always kind of seemed like he didn't like me after that. Yeah. And it's like, I wasn't trying to get you in trouble, dude. You just didn't know. And that's not my fault. Like, let's just read the rule book together.
Yeah. That's what the reserve side, I've seen a lot. Kind of people feeling that they are slighted and they gotta assert, themselves so much that sometimes they want to be recognized so bad that the information or the actions aren't very professional. Mm-hmm. But it's also a culture that you can change for yourself too. Just like you said, it's like, I think this, but what's the actual information? I don't want to be wrong. Or you can just go and do what you think is right and hope that you got the information right, and then take the chance to get in trouble on the other end. I mean, which side of the coin do you want to be on, right? I know which side I want to be on. I want to be on the right side, Put out the most accurate information, find out the information. Don't get mad at people for asking questions.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. I know you're going to get irritated. You're going to get, you're stressed from something that's going on and this, that, and the other. But you've got to learn to take the time, to answer the questions. Army culture. And you're going to have some snide remark in the middle of all that, or some kind of, jugging back and forth. That's the culture. That's the camaraderie part of it. But you can't just throw people to the side and expect them to want to follow you.
Yeah.
It's kind of leadership, right? And so many leadership styles, it's hard for some people to find the right style, and they're struggling the whole time, and then questioning, why don't people like me, or why don't people want to follow me, or anything like that. It's because, sometimes you got to look at yourself. What are you doing that's giving people that attitude? Mm-hmm. Are you just got an attitude that people just don't like? Are you saying things that are wrong all the time? Are you self-checking yourself every once in a while? You got to do that. You got the, I'm the king. I'm E7 or E8 here. Dude, the maddest person I ever had is a sergeant major, because I corrected him on something he was telling my guys. And I'm like, Sergeant Major, you can't. That's not right. It's not true. And I didn't do it in front of everybody. I said, can I
talk
have a word for you offline over here when you have a chance? And he come back, and we had a cordial conversation. But when he left, I could tell that there was a change right then. I got into his command space, and he didn't like that, and the relationship that we did have wasn't what we had after that fact, Mm-hmm. But that's a him problem to me. You know what I mean?
That's
sure. Because I was nice, polite, gave him his courtesies that's due and everything else, and I wasn't going to. It wasn't a gotcha moment I was going at him. I was just like, you can't, Sergeant Major, you can't tell soldiers this when at the end of the time, they're not going to be allowed to do it, and they're going to get in trouble if they get caught doing it. And I'm not going to bring up what it was, but he just didn't appreciate that somebody had the nerve to come to him about that.
Yeah.
And so does that mean he's been doing it for a very long time? He couldn't look back at himself and make a change. I don't know, but it was easier to be mad at Sergeant Stout. What I mean? So
right. You could have potentially been helping him from getting in a lot of trouble. Because if he's saying something, if he's telling units worth of people over and over again something that's going to get them in trouble eventually.
Right. Or the wrong information, and then they're going to all be disappointed because, man, that's what I was told. You know how that goes, right?
Well, touched on it a little bit earlier, is there's a difference in respect for the rank and respect for the person.
Yeah.
So, when I was in, I tried my best to not be disrespectful to the leadership.
Right.
Because they outranked me. And, if they told me I needed to do something, unless it was an outright unlawful thing, I was going to do that. Now, the degree of care I might have taken in executing that task would be different, or the timeliness in that task getting done might have been affected by my respect for the person. There's definitely something to say about that.
That's part of leadership, right? I can be a person that everybody likes, and I can be that guy that everybody likes, and then I cut my leadership right out from under me because I just want to be everybody's friend.
Yeah.
I can be the rank and you just got to do what I tell you to do. Or I can meld them together, understand my soldiers. You don't have to be a friend to understand your ins and outs through the day. Everybody's different. What's unique about these guys that I'm dealing with, and learn how to deal on that level and not give up my authority. You know, I can come to you and ask you in a certain way to do something better than if I go to somebody else. You know, if I don't know, you know, what makes them work, it's going to be hard for me to ask the same question the same way, and get them to do the same thing that you just done. Now, if I know my soldiers, if I have some kind of a working relationship with them, it's easy for me to do, hey, you three guys go in unit, and they're like, yeah, we got it, you know, out the door. Because I've been in both situations. You know, my leadership style didn't come overnight. You know, I believe me, I got my setbacks before I figured out, well, quit trying to be so, you know, authoritative and assertive, and let's just dial it back a little bit, see what happens. I'm like, hey, this works, right? You know, it works for me. It doesn't mean it works for everybody, and I'm not trying to train anybody or tell anybody how to do it. What I'm getting at is you got to find your, you know, your niche in that situation. What's your leadership style? Figure it out, and then go with it. You know, then you always have to build on it. You can't just say, this is the way I am, and then be this way for the next 10 years, because culture, like you said, the culture of certain things are going to change year by year, sometimes month by month.
Yeah.
And you got to be adaptable as well. If you're not adaptable, you know, you get left behind after a while. So I try to bring that into the classroom. You know, it's like, listen, I was in the Army. You know, my very first year here, and I'm over here hollering at these kids like they're one of my, you know, my recruits just going through the office, you know, for, you know, the first time. He's looking at my captain, looking at him. You know,
they're in high school. They're not in the Army proper yet.
Yeah, I had no, you know, and it was so ingrained in me. I had no idea about my language. Yeah, I had people looking at me. Ooh, sorry, you know. Oh, I mean, these are high schoolers. These guys ain't been in the base. You know, it was a hard transition. You know, it was like, oh, you mean I gotta let them get mad at me and I can't say nothing? I mean, I can send them to the office, you know, but
you have still avenues, but it's different avenues.
Very different.
Yeah. And you have to deal with parents. Yep. Like my mom wasn't going to come yell at you for yelling at
me. See, that's the thing too. Here, some of them are just like, yeah, slap shit out of them. I'm like,
if only I could.
Yeah. Am I going to get in trouble? I'm just kidding. But I have had parents tell me, hey, they're knothead, treat them like a knothead. You know, like we had an open house the other night. One of the dads kind of little tips. You know, my son, blah blah blah. If he gets out of line, man, just knock the shit out of him. I'm just like, yes, sir. You know, I try not to feed into that. I'm just like, hey, you have a good day. Thank you for showing up. You know, blah, blah, blah. Have any questions about his grades or anything? You know, I just try to get away from that subject. But
maybe I need to make a phone call to DCF.
Yeah, but you know, you see all the time, you know, all kinds. But I had to adjust my style of leadership teaching, you know, because that's what ROTC is about. It's a leadership course. It's not a recruiting course, and a lot of people have problems with that. The parents think that I'm trying to get their son or daughter into the military, and there's no, man, we do so much stuff in here. We do civics, economics, you know. There is a lot of military. I mean, it's geared that way, but we're not recruiting for anybody. Mm-hmm. What we want is them to have somewhat of real life experience and something they can understand, so when they graduate, walk out the door, they're not stuck like, oh, what do I do now? You know, hopefully we'll impart, you know, some wisdom, you know, show them how to do a resume, you know, we just move them through in a better manner. Me, it didn't happen in my time. It was like goof off at school. Oh, you graduated, here's your diploma, and I was sitting there the very next day at home going, what do I do now? You know, because that whole, whatever, 6, 8, 7 hours, whatever it was, I'm stuck at school all this time. Now I got all this time, and I'm sitting at home going, what am I supposed to do? You know, mom went to work, sisters are still in school, I'm sitting at the house all by myself. You know, I was like, gotta go out and get a job. but I never planned for this. I don't have a car. You know, I never got that, you know, that teaching or that guidance, you know, like this is what you need to do here, there. But just like, here, just figure it out, you know. And then that's what I try not to have. But like I said earlier, you know, Sergeant Stout made all those wrong decisions. And if you just listen, I will have that skipped for you, and you can move on. You can move on to the good stuff.
Yeah.
And I have those conversations quite a bit because I don't want to see somebody like Sergeant Stout sitting at home going, "All right, do I get in trouble?" Because I mean, you know, like idle minds, buddy.
Yeah.
You know, all sorts of things go through your mind. Like, let's go. You have the wrong group that you hang out with. It just compounds after a while. But we try, you know, Captain Simpson in here, my counterpart, he's the SAI, I'm the AI. We try to impart so much on these guys, just to have them be successful after school. I don't know how much the other teachers push on it, but we push that hard in this program.
Yeah.
You know, instill a little bit of discipline, a little bit of manners. You know, we try to be well-rounded with them. You know, you think about doing that, and it has to be an individual thing. Each one of these kids come in with their own issues, you know, and they're all specific to themselves. You know, it's not like, all right, I just got 5 new basic training guys, and then you say, okay, your job is blah.
Yeah.
You know, here's your sergeant. Boom, you know, push them off them. You know, there you go. Go to him before you come see me. You know, stuff like that.
Coming from basic training, you're starting with a template of all very similar, you know, maybe a little bit different, but someone coming from Benning versus, you know, not. But it's basically like this is the expectation. They all got generally the same training. They're all generally at the same level. So you know where to take from there. So I can only imagine in here is that scale is very different.
It is very, very different. And you got there's so many diverse backgrounds, and some people have it, some people don't, family-wise. And you can understand, I'm not going to downgrade anybody, but some people are better off than others, and it shows in this situation, you know. And sometimes the cry for help isn't so loud as you think it would be, but you have to pay attention, you know. And it's leadership style the same way. What I'm talking about, well, we talked about Tisdale, right? If I didn't pay attention to his quirks and as much as he aggravated me, at the same time I was trying to help him, you know, and I was trying to give him guidance. Now, did he always take that? That's a different story. But I think everybody in that unit seen what I was doing with him.
Yeah. Well, if you don't mind, I feel like that's a good way to bring us back a little bit.
Okay.
And ask you a little bit about our deployment, because I was just thinking that Tisdale is very fortunate. You guys both got put at JBB together, or I'm sorry, no, you guys went to North first.
Yeah.
Yeah. What was that one? Not Warrior or...
You got, well, we were at Liberty.
Okay.
He got moved up to, I can't remember. It was the next fob up.
He told me, and I feel terrible because we talked about it.
Yeah, I know.
My memory is garbage.
Things fade after a while.
Yeah. But I remember thinking that it was pretty fortunate you were with him for a while we were overseas, because Tisdale was he needed a little extra attention for sure.
But you know, he did real well. He did. He found his little niche ways there, and didn't have any problems with him.
What was
now on day-to-day personal and, you know, acting goofy, and that never changed, you know, but that's his personality.
Yeah. Well, it's you got to know when to turn it on and off.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like people that I've worked with, they meet me outside of work, and they're like, "Are you even the same person?" You know, because when I'm at work, I'm about, you know, doing a different thing, and then when I get off work, I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'm a goofball. I want to be goofy.
I want to be goofy. Yeah, but I got you. I gotta let your hair down sometimes. I understand.